about Star Trek.
Okay.
I think we all saw Star Trek. Did you see Star Trek?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I said before, I'm a big Star Trek fan. I like the old stuff. I liked the last film. I'm kind of mixed on this one. There were a lot of things I liked about it, but there was a lot of things I really hated about it. And I don't know how much I can say about what I hated about it without getting into really specific plot points.
Yeah.
And I tried really hard to not be like the nerdy Star Trek fan and be like, well, the warp core doesn't actually look like that. But I don't know if I'm being that guy or not. I don't know if I hate it because of that or not. I don't really care about the warp core.
Well, I mean, before we recorded, basically what I had told Sean was that I enjoyed it, but I had some issues with it. I think I like the first movie more.
I do.
The first
I do too.
J.J. Abrams movie. I felt the pacing of this movie was really off. I felt like at times it was really rushed. Whereas the first movie, it's just sort of like, okay, I start thinking about a sequence of events and I'm like, oh, wait, when did that happen? Did that happen, in the middle of the movie or did it happen towards the end? It just felt like the first movie, everything was just really paced, well, and every sequence was allowed to sort of breathe and sort of get to its moment. There was a lot to chew on. Whereas I felt like, did they just cut a bunch of stuff out of this that they're going to eventually put on a future release? Like,
Yeah.
I don't like it when they do that, and I don't really feel like there was any reason to not give fans more of what they want. But I was just sort of like, oh, so the decision making I thought was just a little off on some of the plot points. I felt like a lot of the ending of the movie could have happened in the middle with the same result, and maybe I would have been a little bit more satisfied. I was very disappointed in the end of the movie.
Yep.
But what I really appreciated, and it's not to say that I didn't enjoy the movie, I thought the movie was a lot of fun. I thought there were a lot of fun character moments, sort of some winks back to the classic movies. I was laughing, I felt like I was laughing out loud more. Felt like everyone that was there was actually in on the jokes, So I thought everyone that was there, I saw it on Friday night, I guess technically not opening night. So I felt like I was there, like I was in a safe place.
Yeah.
And I actually heard some people walking out of a previous showing, and they weren't like grumble, grumble, grumble. Like it just was like I was like la 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 la,
Right.
Because I knew there was something in there that
Yeah.
I wasn't supposed to know about.
Yeah.
And that plays off fine. I was fine with the way that played out, and I don't know. I just felt like there was. It was. I thought for the first, third to 2/3 of the movie, it was just like, okay, they're doing a lot of new things here, a lot of different things that I wasn't expecting because I really didn't go in knowing a lot about the movie. And then the third act was just sort of like, here's generic.
Yeah.
And I just sort of thought, really, that's what you came up with after doing all this really interesting stuff?
Yeah. Well, my biggest problem with the film, and I can say this in a general way, they worked really hard to make it seem like they were going to do something really surprising and unexpected. And then 5 minutes later, they undid all of it.
Right, exactly.
That's a great point.
Yeah,
That's a great way to put it.
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
It was almost like there was two directors, and like the first director was really ballsy and was like, "All right, let's tear this stuff up."
You were saying didn't take risks, yeah.
And then the second, and then as soon as like that guy went home for the day, the next guy came and the corporate guy came and was like, "No, we can't do this. This is too different." It's like,
well, it's like they tried to edit it and they were like, "Oh, we got to shoot all this stuff now."
Yeah.
To undo.
And it was like it was toying with me because I was like, I want to see this version of the movie where, it almost looks like for a second Kirk and Spock won't be together.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to see that. They screwed up so much, and now the rest of the movie they work to something big happens and they get back together, and then it literally happens 2 minutes later and they're back together and everything's okay. And it's like, whoa, like I had whiplash.
There's sort of this doubt. Well, sequels are hard, and especially the first sequel, and when the first movie's good. But in particular, when you do that first movie, there's one of the paradigms that they follow quite a bit is this hero's journey myth. It's just sort of this myth that's underlying the stories, and it's a very single hero with a big flaw kind of driven story. And this first movie did great with that with Kirk.
Yeah.
But like you're saying in the beginning of this next movie, the problem when you do it with the first movie, it's supposed to be the biggest event in that person's life, right? When you come up with the next sequel, it's like, well, we just put that person through the biggest ringer we could have ever expected, and now we want you to feel the same way all over again. They kind of constructed this bromance.
Yeah.
Like that, like the heart of this was the Spock-Kirk connection. And Kirk doesn't grow. Kirk's the same guy, like, hey, I'm doing the same things in the beginning that I was in the end.
The other thing is that I saw a couple reviewers mention is that this is a new timeline. Kirk and Spock have not been together forever and ever at this point. They've known each other for 2 years in this timeline. Are they really that close? I don't know. But it felt wrong.
It did, and it didn't feel enough to hang everything on, right? There's no high emotional stakes. There's no what if, Spock's already dating the girl, like it's not, it wasn't the hardest moment of anybody's life. And they do, and again, when you have that sequel and you need to separate from that first story, you start taking all these diversions that you don't take in a first one with this, hey, it's got to be different. Right. So let's follow, let's have someone else drive for a moment. Let's have someone else drive for a moment. And it spreads out. And it never really, for some movies, spread out really well and come together in that big, massive scene where everything collides. It just never had that. Like, you're right, it had these easy endings that said, we tried to make it look like it was going to be hard and separate. Yeah. But that was just to hit the story beat of, they're supposed to get a call and refuse it and then come together. Yeah. And so we did that. Let's move on.
Well, it's like they were almost prone to rush to get Kirk and Spock to like this like really meaningful relationship, like right away, like in the second movie. But it's because I mean, they in the first movie. I mean, we're not going to spoil anything. Obviously, we get to see like old Spock. Yeah, and it's just like, well, we did that, but we still got these young guys, and we need to make them more connected. Yeah. Let's just do it anyway.
It's like old Spock tells young Spock, "He's my best friend," and old young Spock is like, "Okay,
yeah,
he isn't." It's like he just trusts him implicitly.
Right.
Yeah,
that was something that really bothered me.
I could see that being there. Like it was sort of implicit there, but they undercut it with the opening scene.
They take it a little too far.
It's what it is.
It's like I get that these guys are working together. You're the guy that your right hand man. You're going to get to know him. But there is definitely a scene in the movie where it's just like,
I don't buy it at all. And second of all, because
and a lot of role reversal too with the characters from like all this different canon in the series.
I did like sort of the journey they tried to put Kirk on. I thought that was an interesting idea where it's like
early on, especially.
The whole speech in the trailer of like you don't you're still playing by your own rules and all that. You won't make sacrifices and blah blah blah. I liked that they took him on that journey, and I liked that in general.
It's like they almost forgot about it though.
Yeah,
by the third act. Just kind of like, oh yeah, remember all that stuff that we put Kirk through? Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Like we were just trying to like give you a lot of what you enjoyed about the first movie, and we're also trying to come up with a second story here. Let's not try to.
And I feel like in the first movie he's shown, right, when Pike gets kidnapped. Can I talk about the first movie?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. When Pike gets kidnapped, he'll put himself in dangerous way to go save somebody.
Oh, yeah.
He's not really not sacrificing of himself at times.
Yeah.
And he still kind of runs by the hip. Yeah. At all times, so there's not this.
Well, they even addressed that in the movie, like the second movie. They're just like, oh yeah, by the way, you can't do this anymore. Like,
but then we put him right back in control, so that you do exactly what you've always.
Well, and I actually wasn't. I was okay with the way they did that. Like, I was just sort of like, ultimately, this was just how it was gonna end up anyways. Yeah. And it was a meaningful moment, for actually Kirk and Spock. I thought that was really interesting. That like Spock actually got more out of what that event meant than anybody else in the movie.
I thought it was Spock. Spock was the hero in this one, but they didn't play it that way because he's the one that changes technically by the end. And since that's the case,
which would have been a bold move.
Which would have been a bold and strong move, right? Because especially because Chris Pine's so much fun. Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's tough when you. I felt like it was supposed to be Spock's movie, as if you're going to write it that way. If he's the main, if he's going through the major change, it is his movie as far as the story, the formulas go. And in splitting time with Kirk, it just I never felt grabbed. Like you were saying, and in the end, it's a summer movie. I said whoa 5 times. I said ooh 5 times. I did get excited 5 times, and I laughed 8, 10 times. Sure. And so, for the price of a movie ticket, well, the 3D one's annoying because they didn't do anything special, but like for the price of a movie ticket, what I want out of a summer movie, I got enough of that.
Sure, I agree with that.
And they're not all.
Yeah, and I'll say this. I mean, I have this sort of new barometer for movies, which is my wife. She loved it.
Yeah.
She loved it. And I thought, okay, well, you know nothing really about Star Trek, and you enjoyed it. So
I've heard lots of people say they loved it.
Sure.
And that's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, they rehashed a lot of stuff from a previous film. I won't name the film, but it's in the Star Trek series.
Oh, yeah.
They rehashed a lot of it in a lot of ways that made me roll my eyes. But if you've never seen that film,
Yeah.
you don't have the baggage there.
Yeah.
That probably is more excitable,
Yeah.
more enjoyable. Things I loved. Scotty. I loved Simon Pegg.
Did a great job.
He did a great job. He was
And
almost
the line, the storyline.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's the one person that did things that made sense. Like he, in sort of the original vision of Star Trek or whatever, he was the thing that was like standing up to that and saying, "Look, we don't like." So many of the movies get into this point where like, let's go fire lasers and do stuff like that, and it's like,
Well, he's the moral logical sort of code.
yeah. And so he was the one person who, and he actually stood up for something.
Yeah.
That was the one risk they actually took in the film. I thought the acting was very good. Even when I was kind of rolling my eyes, I was like, yeah, these guys are still really acting.
They're pulling it off.
They're really. I feel
They're
something,
standing on their own, I think, too.
even though I'm mad that I feel something.
Yeah.
Right. Like I still
Right.
feel something, even though I hate that they're putting this scene in the movie.
I think we got to say Cumberbatch like 10
Cumberbatch was
times,
great.
right?
He was really good.
People get mad. Yeah, he really was.
Yeah, he was really good. And I'm hopeful for the next film because they set it up in such a way that, makes it seem like they've got a lot of places to go. Now, as far as the box office, it made like $85 million, and I guess that was a disappointment.
That was the prediction, too. It made something like 73.
Yeah.
Like, so Friday's predictions were 82, 85, something along
Yeah.
those lines.
Opening
And it
up
did
on
worse.
Thursday didn't really help them at all.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, you're right. When you include Wednesdays, when you include the third, that's right. It did
Yeah.
get to
So
somewhere around
Star Trek
83.
as a franchise is not dead, but who knows if Paramount's going to want to do another one with this group of people. Who knows? But
Well,
it's hard to believe that a movie that made that much money and will probably make $500 million overall is, a flop. But
Right.
in the franchise world, that could be. I don't know.
But of course, Abrams is going to Star Wars
Yes.
now, so it's like, okay, do you allow him the time to let that breathe,
Yeah.
and then allow him to come? I mean,
Do you even allow him to be involved? Because
Right.
he could just like choose a director that he likes and like be in production meetings once in a while and sort of say
Right.
yes or no.
I mean, I don't know.
The screenwriter, Kurtzman and Orci will probably write it again, Lindelof.
I've enjoyed what they've done with the characters, and you're right. The acting is probably, honestly, like if you were to ask me 5 years ago, like, oh, we've got this cast of young actors that are going to replace all the old characters you know and love, like I was very skeptical. I was like, I don't think they're going to pull it off. Whereas now I'm like, oh yeah, like I see that character as this one, this one, this one. There's not a single actor other than these like not even secondary, like third characters.
Yeah.
That I would be like, yeah, you should probably just get rid of them. Like, I really enjoy the main leads as well as the secondary characters a lot. I mean, I'm connecting with them, and maybe that's just because, they're actors of quote unquote my generation that
I think you're more
doing
right
fun
though.
things.
That you both bring up the performance where it's a very modern style of acting. Because sometimes they're very earnest and within, and sometimes they're self-referential, and sometimes they're slightly winking to the camera,
Sure.
and sometimes they couldn't be more method and real in the moment.
Yeah.
And you need to traverse all that right now for a J.J. Abrams type for a very modern story. You can't just be innocent and play in the movie anymore.
Yeah.
That's not what our big budget movies are.
Yeah.
they do a really good job at making you not feel like they're on sets.
Tough for this
Yeah.
particular movie too.
And I was just sort of like totally on board with that. Like I was
Yeah.
like, okay, the first movie I was sort of like, okay, I see what you're doing here. You've got this starship and you're running. And it's like, no, they like, especially this one, they just like, this feels like a real place, like that could exist somewhere that's in a, not so distant future.
Yeah.
Whereas everything, and that's kind of, you made mention of the warp drive. I looked at that and I thought, does it work? Like, like I feel like that's stuff that you could.
Yeah.
They
find
used
like
a
at
collider
university.
for it this time. Yeah, they
Yeah.
used a Large Hadron Collider, I believe, for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was just sort of like totally sold on the visuals of everything too. So, but I think my big issues, just like it sounds like you guys, is just kind of like where it went.
Yeah.
Like they went places, and you were just kind of like,
It's a
really?
film that could have been really, really, really
Oh, yeah.
great,
Yeah.
but it was just pretty good.
yeah,
So
exactly.
And that, in the end, too, I mean, we were talking a little bit when we talked about Kubrick and watching it and getting more from it each time. We're film people. We will put time into the movie if it keeps giving time back. And there's such a large percentage of the audience, and global too, it seems, where they, it's just something to do on Friday night, and it just needs to take care of $10 worth of entertainment for 2 hours, and if
Yeah.
it hits that mark, it's good. If it makes you forget about your kids for 2 hours, it is a good film.
Yeah.
If you can laugh for 2 hours, it's good.
okay. A Place for Film is recorded at WFIU Studios in Bloomington, Indiana.